Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Governance and Transparency Committee meeting for October 2022. Just noting attendance, all councillors of the committee are here, other than Councillor Milligan, who's online. So I'll move that in accordance with section 254K of the Local Government Regulation 2012 and 8.62 of Council's Meeting Procedures Policy, that Councillor Russell Milligan be permitted to participate in the meeting via audio link. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion on that this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Welcome aboard, Councillor Milligan.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you.
And just noting today, Councillor Fechner has come in as an observer, so welcome to the greatest committee in all of the lands.
Thanks for having me.
Move on to the acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. Do any councillors this morning have a declaration of interest for our committee meeting? There being no declarations, we'll move on to item 1, business outstanding. Update on new lease over 3133 Nimmo Street. Do any members of the committee have questions regarding that? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover from the floor. Moved by Councillor Jonick and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion on that update this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? It's, okay. Well, that's Councillor Madsen, Councillor Jonick, Councillor Kunzelman. How do you vote, Councillor Milligan?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
All right, those against? That's Councillor Harding and Councillor Doyle. It was just to receive a note on the engagement process that we requested. I just invite members of the committee to talk and engage with those relevant officers if you have an issue with that engagement, because that was what we requested at the last meeting.
Thank you, Chair, and yes, those discussions are ongoing. Thank you.
All right, well, make sure to update us before we make a future determination. Item 2 this morning is the response to notice of motion, review of terms of reference for Ipswich City Council standing committees. Do we have any relevant questions for officers on this matter? There being no relevant questions, I'll seek a mover this morning. Moved by Councillor Jonick. Would you like to provide the wording?
I have it, I've provided it to Vicky, but I will also read that out. So moving with amendment to recommendation A. And sorry, I'll just bring that up. So that the revised Ipswich City Council Standing Committee's Terms of Reference Attachment 3, including the additional responsibilities for advocacy and 2032 Olympics and Paralympics added to Annex 4, Economic and Industry Development Committee, be adopted. Thank you.
All right, so you're going to move that along with recommendation A through D. You're comfortable with that this morning?
Yes.
I'll seek a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning from the committee?
Yes,
Mayor Harding.
if I may, Chair. I'll be speaking against that amended motion. The rest of it I was fine. And I'd like to put forward a foreshadowed motion, and that is at the original motion on the report, which is the original motion A. In February, the Deputy Mayor put forward a motion to review the terms of reference for our standing committees, a very good motion that shows good governance. Council conducted workshops with councillors on the 26th of April, and the Executive Services team conducted one-on-one meetings with each councillor, as well as reviews with Council's Executive Leadership team, and circulated draft terms of reference in August. Further consultation and meetings occurred in September, and these revised terms of reference have been provided to us as they were the consensus of the councillors. At these meetings and during the consultation, it was agreed that advocacy and the Olympics and Paralympic Games would be shared across committees depending on the activity. Then last night after the close of business, Councillor Johnick sent an email to councillors notifying us of her intent for all advocacy and all matters to do with the Olympics and Paralympic Games should not follow the agreed outcome, but all go to the Economic and Industry Development Committee, and that these activities be led by her as the chair. Now, I was on council business last night at Queensland Parliament advocating for our community, something I may not be able to do if this amendment proceeds. Now, I did not get home till after 10:30 last night, and my first commitment this morning was 7:20 a.m. Then I had another commitment at 8 and 8:30, then this meeting's at 9. So I have not had the opportunity to discuss this proposed amendment with councillors. My views as to why I do not support the amendment. Firstly, the word advocacy is a formal word that we use when we say we are fighting for something, and we're fighting for our community. As elected representatives, we all fight for our community. Examples of other elected representatives who state they are fighting for our community, and I bring forward here Shane Newman's homepage, our member for Blair, and his homepage says, "I'll fight for a fair go for Blair." Jim Madden, the state MP for Ipswich West, has stated in the media that the state government projects where he's fighting for funding include, and he lists the projects that he's funding. So that's the normal terminology that we say that we're fighting for our community. I can't see how any one committee can have ownership of what council is fighting for. It is like stating that anything that council does that requires funding or budget comes under the Governance and Transparency Committee alone, as it has financial and budget management and portfolio responsibilities. It's clearly not appropriate. During our discussions throughout this work over the last 8 months, I felt that there was a positive sentiment amongst councillors that both advocacy and the 2032 Games were broad enough to enable all councillors an opportunity to provide leadership and have a voice on these issues as they relate to their portfolios and also to their divisions. The model we used during the federal election campaign was a good example of this, where all councillors had a role to play in representing Ipswich's priority projects and speaking about those projects in the media. I would be reluctant to endorse these matters being reduced to one committee. Actually, I would not want to reduce this to one committee, as I feel every councillor should have a chance to get involved in advocacy and the 2032 Games. They are too big and broad to be contained in one portfolio. I also believe it will be increasingly difficult to determine what is advocacy and what is a committee matter. The I2 West project, for example, has been a great advocacy priority, but our officers are also about to embark on the delivery of this project. North Ipswich Reserve is another example. Over the coming years, I think both advocacy and our work towards 2032 will hopefully grow and become a key focus for the city. I think it is fair and equitable for all councillors to have a key role in this, but also share the load of what will be a massive task. Councillor Johnick references, I think in the email she sent last night, that the word advocacy in iFuture is linked to economic and industry development. iFuture also mentions the word advocacy on 7 matters, including our Strengthening Ipswich Communities plan to understand the needs of the city to help strategically guide council's investment in programming and advocacy for community facilities and services, which would sit under CCAS. And also our advocacy approach for the Waste and Circular Economy Transformation Directive, which will be under GIW, as well as other matters which sit under other portfolios. Perhaps we should consider adding the word advocacy to all the terms of reference for all committees. The chair of CCS does advocate for libraries, community, cultural and sporting facilities and services and so on. Regarding the location of the advocacy team, other South East Queensland councils have their advocacy team in the office of the CEO, or the office of the mayor. Now that major projects have moved to the office of the CEO, I've been having initial thoughts and discussions in my office that advocacy moving to the office of the CEO too, due to the centralised nature of that work and the importance of that work. I guess, Councillor Johnny, our colleagues all work hard advocating for their division and committees, and we'll be working diligently on the 2032 Games activities to maximise the benefits for our community. I think our community will benefit from a team approach, not lock it up in one committee. Lastly, at the very least, we shouldn't be making a last-minute decision on such a critical matter. We all had ample opportunity over 8 months, in fact, to provide feedback during the consultation and review process. I think it's unfair and unreasonable to other councillors who work collaboratively on a consensus outcome for these two large portfolio items to be removed from them. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Mayor. Any further discussion from the committee this morning? Councillor Johnnick?
It disappoints me that having advocacy as a reporting requirement to come through economic development and reporting alone, whilst it's in its infancy, has been translated to me trying to take all credit and all advocacy roles for this city, because that's not correct. I'm simply trying to simplify the process, which is what the intent of our revised terms of reference motion was, so that the administration of reporting could go through economic development, and then any projects that got any traction that were had any involvement with any other committees could then move to that relevant sector. We are all advocates and we do it every day, and we should all get the opportunity as much as possible to stand up for this city and how fantastic it is. And so I am not saying for 1 second that I want to take any of that away from anyone. I only want to share it. And I have been having these discussions in depth with officers and with other councillors. And perhaps that speaks to some of the relationships within this culture. Thank you.
Do any other committee members wish to speak on the matter? I've got a few thoughts myself. I reject many of the assertions made by you this morning, Mayor. Considering calling it last minute, well, this is prima facie the discussion. This is the number one discussion chamber for our council, the number one decision-making chamber. This is where we make formal decisions. And the great strength of our committee process is that any recommendation made by the committee today can be revisited and changed at our forthcoming council meeting. So it's, pending acceptances of these recommendations, we're still 14 days away from potential adoption by the council. The other thing too that I found a bit annoying, but we all interpret words differently, so I'm not, making any accusations or anything of that regard. I think the motion that's before us that's being proposed by Councillor Johnnick, it's more about the reporting of advocacy through the committee structure. It wouldn't change project champions for regionally significant projects. It certainly wouldn't inhibit any councillor from advocating and using their voice as an elected representative of the City of Ipswich. I wouldn't support that as a convention, and I wouldn't support that occurring, and I reject any assertion that I would support those things, because every councillor has a voice and should be emboldened to use that. So just on those two things, I disagree. I don't think that that's going to occur because of what's put forward this morning. I think Councillor Johnnick is a safe set of hands. If I was captaining a cricket team, I'd have her at first slip. She knows what she's doing. She's very capable, and I've got full faith that it's not a power grab, because she doesn't operate like that. She always tries to build consensus, and that's been my experience, and happy to make those comments this morning on the public live stream. Councillor Kunzman, I believe you raised your hand. Would you like to speak after me? No, I didn't. Oh, apologies.
My apologies. I was trying to
It is on.
I was merely trying to get the secretary to raise the page because I can't read it.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Anyway, those are my comments. If anybody else would like to speak to the matter this morning, the floor is yours. There being no further discussion, I'll put recommendations A through D to the vote. Those in favour? We've got myself, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Jonik, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Milligan, how do you vote on this matter?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Those against? Mayor Harding and Councillor Kunzelman. The matter has carried. We'll move on to item 3 today, the confirmation of minutes of the Governance and Transparency Committee number 8 of 15 September 2022. I'll seek a mover from the floor for those minutes. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on those minutes this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous in the room. How do you vote, Councillor Milligan?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 4 today is our first procurement matter, the River City Locksmiths Property Limited arrangement with new owners. As it's a procurement matter, we've got 3 parts to the recommendation. Any discussion or questions of relevant officers on this? I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. Moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion this morning from the committee? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of those recommendations? It's unanimous in the room. Councillor Milligan, how do you vote?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
That's unanimous and carried. Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Item 5 is another procurement matter, the delegation to the CEO to enter into a contract for the supply of small contestable site electricity. Any questions this morning of the relevant officers from the committee? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendations A through D. Moved by Councillor Jonik and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion on that this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous in the room. And how do you vote, Councillor Milligan?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Item 5 is unanimous and carried. Item 6 this morning is the artefact subscription renewal. 2 recommendations there. Any questions for the relevant officer? There being no questions for the relevant officer, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B together. Moved by Councillor Jonik, and we have a seconder in Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on that matter this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Johnny. Sorry. How do you vote, Councillor Milligan?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 7 today is a renewal of expenditure lease over shop 3321 and 3322 Redbank Plaza, 1 Collingwood Drive, Redbank. Do any members of the committee have questions on this? Mayor Harding, call on the relevant officer.
And Chair, the question would be more around the library facility as opposed to probably the procurement side.
Mr. Poll is now approaching the lectern.
Good morning, Ben Poll, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Through the Chair, Mr Poll, obviously this space is larger now, is that correct? And substantially more expensive as well. Do you mind outlining the reasons for that?
Yeah, certainly. So this library facility has been on a month-to-month lease for a number of years, whilst we decided the long-term service delivery model. Market rates have changed over that time, and so this is the market rate for the square meterage for Redbank Plaza. The expanded facility just relates to, excuse me, an expanded footprint because we're now having the entrance via the shopping centre proper as opposed to via the car park.
Right. Okay. Will there be benefits to the community? Will there be additional programs or anything like that due to the additional space?
Yeah, exactly. The expanded footprint allows for additional catalogue as well as additional programming.
Thank you, Mr Poll.
Any further questions for Mr Poll this morning? Thank you, Mr Poll. Moving on to the section of the committee where we need a mover. I'll seek a mover for recommendation A, B and C. Thank you, Councillor Doyle, and a seconder in Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion this morning over this matter? Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. Noting that the amazing library there at Redbank Plaza sits within Division 3, and we know that it is very well utilised by our residents, and Councillor Fechner and I, are there often. Most recently, a couple of Saturdays ago, doing our community pop-up, and we're really excited by the new opening inside the shopping centre. It's going to make it more accessible and safer, I think, for families to enter, and the library is well used. It's a great asset there for our residents around Collingwood Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any further discussion this morning? Mayor Harding.
If I may, Chair. I think it's a great asset, and obviously I'll be voting to support this. I just thank the organisation too for the table looking at how much rents are at other shopping centres. I guess I am disappointed at the cost plus the outgoings when you compare it to, say, to Indooroopilly. It's a third of the size of the one in Indooroopilly, but it's not a third of the price, and and we've got to look at traffic. So disappointed in that, but the market terms are the market terms, I guess. But yeah, look forward to the expanded offering.
Thank you. Any Councillor Kunzelman?
Thank you, Chair. I could make some motherhood statements about the values of libraries, as I always do, and I particularly applaud this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Johnny?
Just wanted to add on other incentives that were part of this lease arrangement as well. So looking at net dollar value, and it does make it quite attractive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnny. With discussion being exhausted, I'll move to the vote. Those in favour of recommendation A, B and C. That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Milligan, how do you vote?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. That's unanimous and carried. Item 8 today is our Flood Recovery Resilient Homes Fund Voluntary Home Buyback Proposed Property Acquisition matter. We've got 3 recommendations. Do any members of the committee have questions for the relevant officer on this? There being no questions required, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. That's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion this morning from the committee?
If I may, Chair. I just want to thank the Queensland Reconstruction Authority for their very proactive work and very delicate and sensitive work that they've been doing with our community. I also thank council officers for their work with QRA on this. They're not easy discussions for people to have. And obviously this is the tranche 1. And they've got, it's tranche 2. That's going forward, and we know that tranche 3 is coming through as well. Obviously, the mapping and where it is happening is confidential at this stage, but it's wonderful to see the fact that residents are being paid market value pre the flood with this, and it's great to see a large take up of the voluntary buyback scheme, knowing that residents can still register their expression of interest up until I think June 2024, and I encourage people, if you look at it, it's an opportunity. You might as well have a look at it. It's voluntary the entire way. Even if you get an offer, you still don't have to go through with it. But it's great to see such great take up, and I think that will offer a lot of closure for so many families who were so severely impacted in the floods.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion this morning on this item? There being no further discussion, I'll put recommendation A through C to the vote. Those in favour? It's unanimous in the room. Councillor Milligan, how do you vote?
Affirmative, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. That matter is unanimous and carried. Any notices of motion this morning? There being Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. I was a bit slow out of the gate this morning when we were having our discussion on the terms of reference. So I'm seeking some guidance from yourself and both the CEO. I'd like to move a motion that I join the three remaining committees that I'm currently not a member of, and that is the Economic Development, Communities and Environment. So from a procedural point of view, I may now need to just wait until the next ordinary, might be cleaner and easier.
Yeah, I'll refer to the CEO. I think doing that at the council meeting is administratively probably the best.
I would agree, just in terms of the timeframes that we have in the policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, I'm happy with that.
Right, no matters arising. I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:32. Thank you, everyone.